It took 1 month to make one of this year's best-selling games. How is this even happening? This is one of those things that should throw everything we know about the games industry and everything the games industry knows about the games industry into a complete uproar. We have been lied to, deceived, bamboozled. So many of the record-breaking, still fondly remembered games from the 90s and 2000s, games that they are cashing in on with remasters and remakes to this day because even with early console limitations, they were still better games than most modern games, and were made in a year or two for a few $1,000,000. Today we have Concords, and yes, that game that took almost a decade, 1,000 or so devs, and half $1 billion. It might be the worst of them, but that's not far off what it took to make Veilguard, Kill the Justice League, Saints Row, the now cancelled Perfect Dark, made by the first Quadra A studio, or the first Quadra A game, Skull and Bones, wears Beyond Good and Evil. It is fair for us to not expect peak regularly with a 1-month development cycle, and hitting millions of sales out of nowhere is of course as much an extreme as Concord making $0 after hundreds of millions spent, but can we not get something in the middle? Can we not get back to standard games taking 1 to 2 years, and the massive ones being the only ones to hit 5 years? It will have been at least a decade and a half between Skyrim and Skyrim 2, and I refuse to consider that acceptable for a popular series. Peak sold over 5 million copies. Not 5 million activations, not 5 million downloads, 5 million sales. Few games will ever hit that in their lifetime. Even major franchises struggle now, and that's even with the easy boost of a few million Game Pass players that lose interest before the first boss fight. How is Peak even successful? And hear me out on this, is another friendslop game, which sure, they're great for Twitch views and collabs, and no shade if you like these games. But this right now might be the most oversaturated genre with a deluge of heavy hitters. These games are coming out like crazy. Peak combines survival, another saturated genre, with frustrating climbing walking games, which again, this is not a genre whose participants are starving right now. So we have a game made very quickly, without agenda, without massive cinematics budgeting, without some huge tech advancement, in direct competition with a large amount of recent successful games competing for the same player base. This formula is exactly what they would tell you leads to a guaranteed failure. Then again, this is the same they, which whispers in the ears of studios on what will do well or poorly for over a decade. A decade that has dragged the games industry into its biggest nosedive since the 80s. You can say it's really hard to make a game that people find fun, that remains within budget and provides something unique. But small studios are proving they can do this constantly. While studios with thousands of devs and exponentially more time and money are acting like Michigan chefs, who regress to a point of not knowing how to boil water. So what does this mean? They declare things that are immediately proven wrong. Remember how often we are told that players were fatigued by live service games. It was used to excuse the failure of Avengers, Kill the Justice League, Skull and Bones, Anthem, Redfall. We were told hero shooters were saturated. And that's what caused Concord to bomb. But then we get Marvel Rivals, live service hero shooter. We see live service games like Path of Exile 2, The First Descendant, Monster Hunter Wilds. They see major initial success, before some unliked patches at least. We get the likes of Palworld, and that's so good Nintendo threw in the towel. And they admitted publicly they could never make a Pokemon game that competes with it. Your consultants are lying or they're incompetent. And really, it doesn't matter which one. How about years of the kings of JRPGs, Square Enix, telling us players are tired of turn-based strategy? BioWare moving on from the dated CRPGs. And then we turn around and what do we see? Metaphor, Clair Obscur, Baldur's Gate 3, and they all knock it out of the park. So this is going to be the hottest of takes. But frankly, I don't think saturation really means as much as people think. I know, absolute madness. That there is no dated or dead genre, there is no superhero fatigue, no live service fatigue, no whatever else. If there's a real, measurable fatigue, it is for heavy messaging mixed with constant censorship and obnoxious developers attacking their potential audience. But before you say, well, duh, obviously, anyone would know that making fun games that gamers want to play is the most basement level easy take ever. But let's pause here. Is it? Because where I'm sitting, it doesn't seem like it is. Because the gacha studios, they seem to realize that attractive, feminine ladies or horses and masculine badass dudes has turned them into money printing machines. But most modern AAA game studios do not realize that they can make money by having some visual appeal in their games. And that's about as basement level, mouth breathing, knuckle dragging, unga bunga of a take that gamers like playing badass dudes and seeing sexy chicks. Yet, we have over a decade of games developers proving they don't understand this. And if they can't understand the most simple of things, maybe it shouldn't surprise us that a guy named Tyler made a drugs game that utterly crushed the 20,000 developer studio Ubisoft's Ass Creed Yasuke masterpiece. And if you read peak reviews or watch some influencers playing it, they're having fun. The game might not look like much, but the people playing it are having fun. There's so many games with a single step to their complexity. A game about digging a hole, a game about jumping to the top of a tower, a game about walking somewhere. And these are not things that only an indie can do well. Death Stranding takes one such simple concept, yet it adds on a great deal more layers, a complex story, an expensive mocap, actors, and cinematic graphics. And while you might not like his vision necessarily, there's no question that Kojima has a vision. Which is something you can't say for the ethics department looming over the shoulders of AAA devs in pretty much all other games. Look, peak ain't for me. Not every game is for everyone. But I get it, because indie allows for hundreds of games tackling hundreds of genres and all kinds of audiences. My peak is Vampire Survivors and its clones. And you want to talk simple, that gameplay is walk up, walk down, walk left, walk right. That's the loop. Yet, it took bullet hell, flipped it on its head, and created an instant classic of a subgenre. Balatro is poker with some extra rules, and it's crazy addictive. Yet all these AAA overcomplicated, well-funded games made by well-trained, highly educated professionals in massive studios are meeting constant failure, and it seems baffling. Until you hear them talk about games and how much they hate gamers, how they value engagement over fun, how they deliberately put things in their games to try to piss off their audience, how they consider the old game and old audience to be problematic in some way, and they need to fix it with their superior inability to create anything of value. This is a mindset problem. This is a problem of AAA devs who are not hungry. They do not have the drive to make something that earns success. They think they made it into the AAA space. They already succeeded. That success is now guaranteed. They have that nerds in a cave mindset that no matter what they do, the old audience will always show up. So they can disrespect them and go turn these beloved, long-running series into egocentric therapy sessions and platforms for the religious indoctrination. And decades of franchises dying this way has taught them nothing at all. Instead of putting their all into what they're making, they sit on these IPs like fat landlords, assuming the peasants will provide them with passive income just for existing and dictating the rules and tones of their communities like a power-tripped HOA, banning and canceling any who step out of line. They have grown lazy and arrogant. So we can say that pretty characters and fun games are common sense, but if we realize there is no common sense left in the games industry, their behavior starts to kind of make sense. Indie and AA are hungry. They know they will fight tooth and nail for every inch of popularity. And if they squander this opportunity, it could be their last. If they make an Anthem or Avengers, they cannot afford to sit on it while lying about future updates and a big game-changing revamp that'll never come. So AAA studios, they can give up on any game that flops out the door within weeks of a launch. An indie studio is done if they do that. They either give up and become a scamming lol cow, or They roll up their sleeves and spend years turning launch No Man's Sky into today's No Man's Sky. That is what hunger looks like. The games industry is packed with games not meant for everyone, that don't try to appease players. They are not for over the core audience, and that's a good thing, because they do try to appease their core audience, which is something AAA has completely lost sight of. I no more want a game like Peak to change for me than I wanted Dragon Age, one of my favorite series of all time, to become a game meant for California Karens who hate dark fantasy and just want to turn it into identity politics feelings at a coffee shop simulator. This is so simple. Make the game fun, make the game for its core audience, and do every possible thing you can do to make it a success. Stop putting barriers in front of yourselves. If you aren't willing to do this bare minimum, common sense thing, I'd say you need to get out of the gaming industry. But from the looks of it, layoffs are already doing that job for us. So do you like fun games, or do you prefer games that insult your intelligence and try to convert you to their socio-political cult? And if you are looking for a sociopathic cult, try subscribing below and all the other stuff. I apologize for absolutely nothing.